We started the film, I guess, about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago. We took that first trip to celebrate the first anniversary of the church. That's when they actually started the filming. We went to about 4 cities in Liberia, just to give you a little background so you'll know kind of some of the subject matter of the film. We visited Monrovia, that's the capital city of Liberia. That's where our first church is. And we went to several different sites in the city, and basically we were trying to tell the story of the Civil War and how people are recovering from the Civil War, but from the perspective of the local people. So we visited a widow's shelter, a women's shelter, a graveyard where some of the youth who were child soldiers during the war are living. And they told their stories. There was one blind man who lived at the women's shelter, and he told his story how he became blind during the war. And I don't want to tell all of his story, but he had an incredible story, just how he survived and what his vision is for Liberia and its recovery. This is a blind man talking about his vision for a new Liberia. So it's a powerful story. So I'm hoping that's going to make the editing. I'm just telling you what we filmed. All this is not going to be in the film, but I'm hoping his story is in the film. And then we interviewed some of the women who lived at the women's shelter, and they talked about their experience of the war, and how they lost their husbands, their brothers, their sons in the war, and what they're doing now to rebuild their lives. And then we went to the graveyard where a lot of the child soldiers live. They actually exhume the bodies and they sleep in the graveyard. And that's kind of how, that's an important piece in the whole story, because that's kind of how Preston got involved in doing ministry. He would leave his job at lunchtime. Instead of eating lunch, he would go take lunch to the young people at the graveyard. And so he started ministering to them, but he didn't have any church, any program, anything to offer them except some hope, some inspiration. So it kind of grew from there. He really wanted to have something to offer them spiritually, not just to give them some food to eat. And that's how he was motivated to get the church going. And then we went to the women's village. There's a village about, I don't know, about 30 minutes from Monrovia called Kakata. And it's kind of like the women's shelter in Monrovia. It's all women and children. All the men were killed during the war. And that is another outreach center where the church in Monrovia focuses their attention. So twice a month, Preston and some of the other members of the church go to Kakata, and they take them food, supplies, some of the things they need, and offer them encouragement, support, and try to help them resolve some of the issues they have trying to raise their children. Because President has some connections through his job, the vocational training program of the LOIC, and LOIC is an international organization. It's in a lot of different places, so he has a lot of pull in terms of getting young people an opportunity to get vocational training and to learn some skills. So he uses those resources to offer those who are able a road out of their situation. So after Kakata, we went to Mbiyu, which is where we had our second church for about a year. The pastor really never got on board. And I told that story after the first trip there, how they were very opposed to women having any leadership role or responsibility in a church. And, well, that was just one among many issues that they couldn't get over. So we had to part ways with them. And then our third church, which is now our second church in Ganta City, So there's a part of the film that's telling those three stories. The second time we filmed, which was a year ago, we couldn't go to Liberia because of the election and all the chaos that was going on during the election time. So we had to meet up in Accra in Ghana. And so even though we were in Ghana, we're supposed to be, it's going to be Liberia in the film. But anyway, at that point, we were telling the history of how the church got started and how Preston and I got connected and telling that whole story. So that's the second part of the film. Preston's telling how he started his 30 Minutes for Jesus during his lunch break, how he met Rufus and some of the other leaders at the time who were part of his early missionary efforts. And then we talked a lot about that first year of the church's existence in Monrovia and some of the challenges and struggles that they had. One of the biggest issues has always been land, because during the war, a lot of the infrastructure was destroyed. Most of the city was destroyed. So a lot of still have a lot of issues about land. Who owns this plot of land? Who owns these acres of land? So there's a lot of turf wars going on all the time, and so that makes it really difficult to purchase land in the inner city of Monrovia, and so that's why we started off in Seaview community, and then we ended up moving to Painesville, which is another community. The other day, Noretti was asking me for information about the churches in Liberia, and so she was asking me for addresses. And I said, addresses? No, they don't have addresses. They have local communities. Okay, so it's Painesville, it's Seaview, it's different names for their communities, but there are no addresses. But we ended up going to another community because the land that we were on, that we thought was being donated to us by one guy, ended up being somebody else's property. At least they claimed that it was, and there was this big conflict about that. But everywhere we have moved the church, we moved the church 3 times. And the place we are now, the elder who allowed us to use the property said that we could use it for 6 years. And then after we settled that agreement and started laying the foundation for the church, about 6 months later, Preston calls me and says this guy decided that he was going to lease the property to a group of people who wanted to start an auto repair shop. So yeah, so there have been many struggles about the land. That first year also, when we started building the church, we bought an office for the church. And we paid for the whole year to lease out this office space, which was a half of a duplex. It was a newly built home, beautiful office space, which was going to be our headquarters, our national office, and our own private housing. So whenever we went, we had a place to stay. It had 2 big bedrooms, and we were going to furnish the bedrooms, the kitchen, and all of that. It wasn't 3 months after we got back that the president called me and said that the guy decided he was going to sell the house, both parts, and so he reneged on his contract. And so we've been going through this since the beginning, these land issues. So that's still our biggest issue. But the good news is, on this recent trip, we met a brother and sister from Atlanta who have property in Monrovia, and they kind of told us some inside stuff about how we can get around some of the obstacles that we've been facing. They have a 20-acre farm, and so they've been doing some farming for a couple of years now, and they're doing pretty good. And they were trying to help us to understand that the further you go outside the city, the easier it is to get land. And it's better to get land from the government than trying to deal with private individuals and families and all that, because you're going to always have those issues. So taking that advice, we're going to seek out some land from the government. And the other part of that good news is that they're starting to lay the foundation for a public transportation system, which was a big obstacle, because if we move the church, how would our members get to the church? So now, because they're beginning to put together public transportation, it'll be easier for us once we purchase some land and decide where we want to actually physically relocate. So we're looking at enough land for the church to have a little small farm and to build a school and a clinic. That's what we're looking at. So maybe about 5 or 6 acres is what we're looking for. So we got some scouts on the ground now looking for some land for us, and they tell us that if we purchase the land this year before the end of 2014, because after 2014 the price of land in Liberia is going to go up tremendously, we probably could get 5 or 6 acres for about $100 an acre. So put that in your prayers that we're able to do that. So that was the second leg of the film. And this last recent trip, this was our third and final leg of the film. And in this part of the film, we are telling the story of what the church has been doing for the last 3 years, and some of the obstacles and challenges they have had to face. Preston is telling his own personal story, some of which I've shared with you previously, about how somebody came and tried to take his property and say that it belonged to them, and they bulldozed his house and tore down his cafe and all of that. And so he had to rebuild the whole thing. But he's telling his story in the third part of the film. And Kojo, who has been instrumental in helping to put together a business plan for the school, is telling his struggle with trying to make that happen. So there are a lot of little stories going on, and I don't know how they're going to end up putting it all together. But we shall see. But in terms of the film, people have been asking, when is it going to be out? When is it? It takes about 18 to 24 months to edit a film once it's been complete. So one of their issues right now is the funding, getting the funding to complete the editing process and to do the marketing and promotion and all of that. And they're going to do the same thing they did with the first film. They're going to shop it around to film festivals all around the world. So they went to Asia, Australia, Europe, America, Canada, Mexico. They went everywhere. So that's the plan this time as well, to shop it around everywhere. So they're trying to get their supporters and sponsors to help make that happen. This most recent trip, we have been pushing it back every month because they were waiting for the funding to finish the filming. And Claus said, Carter, we can't push it back anymore because it'll be the rainy season, so we need to just go on and go film. So that's what we did. He had to pay for the filming out of his own pocket. But he was pretty sure that he was going to get the grant money soon, so he was willing to take that risk. So that's where we are. Any questions about the film? Wonderful. Because I don't have any answers about the film. What's it called? I don't know. What? No, that was the initial title. That's not permanent, though. No. Yeah, we don't. We have no. I haven't. They don't even have any idea. That was our last conversation when we finished the film. So this whole trip really was about the film. The filmmakers got there a week before we did, so they were there filming all around Monrovia and a couple other places for a week, and interviewing Preston and some of the other church members. And then when Kojo and I got there on Sunday, on that Palm Sunday, from the moment we touched down, it was filming. all the way through Good Friday. And the filmmakers left to go back to Sweden on Good Friday. And so we were, you know, we were filming. That's all that was going on for 6 days. So we didn't. It was so funny though, because I didn't feel like I was in Liberia, because we didn't go anywhere. We were right at the hotel. We went across the street. All the filming was on location, so we didn't go anywhere. And the whole week had gone by, and we were still sitting at the hotel. I said, "Wow, this don't feel like Africa, because I'm not out," and you know. But finally, on Friday, when we took the filmmakers to the airport, then we went and caught up with the church members. We had a Good Friday service that Friday. And then Saturday was all church meetings, and Sunday was worship service. And then we were on our way home. But the good part about that experience was I got to spend a whole week with both pastors, because Pastor Jones from Ganta City came down on Monday to Monrovia, so he stayed with us the whole week. And so I was able to really get to know him. And we did a lot of best self theology sessions, and created a lot of confusion. And yeah, it's just like the South. That's how it feels. You know, you're in the South, the old, not the South now. No, not the city-fied South. Colonel. There is, but it's seasonal. It's only during election time. Okay, so when there's no election, there's no unrest. So it's very seasonal, and every year it's less and less. And last year when we didn't go, it was just, you know, being safe, better to be safe. But the election was, you know, it went off well. There was no lash back after the election, and, you know, so it's getting better. But that agitation, I don't know how many people know the source of it, but Liberia's government has always been run handpicked by the U.S. government. So anybody who's not been educated in the U.S. will never be a politically elected official in Liberia. Their drinking water is fine for them. Their drinking water is fine for them, but you can't drink it, and I can't drink it. You can take a bath in it, you just can't drink it. We stayed at, and this again, just to give you some idea about life in Liberia, we usually stay in a low-budget hotel when we go. We stayed in all kind of places. We stayed in missionary guest houses where they only had electricity from 6 to 11 p.m. No hot water, no amenities of any kind. We stayed in $100 hotels where we've had electricity from 6 to midnight, and no hot water and no other amenities. But on this trip, this last trip, we stayed in a 5-star hotel. And the amenities were a bath towel and a washcloth and a bar of soap, 24-hour electricity, and hot water. Even though we didn't have hot water, it was warm. It was warm, but you know, so it. And I'm saying this to say that in terms of other African countries, Liberia is still way behind in terms of offering the kind of convenience and comfort that we Americans are used to. So it's. I was just giving them background on the film and all that. After we finished filming Friday, we decided to take a trip up to the U.S. Embassy because it was not. We were kind of close to downtown anyway, so we decided the film crew was out. They were trying to get some aerial shots of the city. So we went walking up the road to the U.S. Embassy to have a meeting with the ambassador, hoping that he was going to be there for Good Friday. It was Good Friday, but we were hoping somebody was at there. He was just testing out his phone. So that we can't, every time we go, there's some excellent adventure like that. And the funny thing about that story is while that was happening with us, the film crew had gone with Preston and Rufus they had made an arrangement to rent a helicopter to go up over the city and film. But the helicopter guy got busy and they didn't get there on time, so he took somebody else up, and it was about making money. So they didn't get there, they lost their spot. So Friday was the last day, so they had to get this film, the aerial shots for the film. So Preston and Rufus put their minds together and said, there's an old hotel that's never been rebuilt downtown. You can probably go up on the roof and get all the good aerial shots you want. And so that was the plan that morning at breakfast. They were going to go up on top of the hotel and take what they could. And then when we sat down and started going through the details of it, who was going to go and all that, Preston said, but hold on, there's a problem. A lot of thieves and robbers sleep in that hotel. And so if we go there to film, we're going to have to dash them. And even if we dash them, they might not be satisfied with that, and they might want your camera and your phones and everything else. So we're really taking a big risk if we go there. So we had to have this big powwow. Everybody was for it except Motts. Motts was like, no, I'm not going to risk my life, not on the last day. And so Claus is an adventurer. He's fearless. He's been all over the world. He ain't scared of nothing, okay? So Claus says, no, we're going to do it. So they go off. So while we're having this adventure downtown near the embassy, they're on top. They went up to the top of the hotel, set up their cameras, started filming, and Preston said something told him not to go up there, just to stay down, on the ground. And sure enough, about 5 minutes after they had gone up, here comes a gang of guys. Say, we saw the two white men going upstairs and the white girl. So Preston had to talk him down. He had $25 US. He gave him the $25 US. They left. About 5 minutes later, they came back. They said that was not enough. We saw two white men and one white girl. So Preston had to talk him down again. He said, I don't have anything else to give you. He said, if you stay here, I'll go see if they have something else. But they don't have any money. They're just filming. They're just taking some photographs. So right as he was about to go up, the police showed up. And so they asked what was going on and everything. And Preston didn't want to get them in trouble, so he just said they were hungry. I gave them some money to get some food. And so the policeman said, well, I'm just going to stick around because I see this vehicle here and I know there's something going on. So he explained to him, they were up there filming, taking pictures. And so the policeman said, okay, well, I'm just going to stay around. I want to make sure nothing happens to these Americans while they're here. So the police stuck around for a little while. About 30 minutes later, they left. The guys came back. They said, we want to go upstairs and see what they're doing. This is our house. So Preston said, okay, but I'm just telling you they're taking pictures. So he escorts them up to where the filmmakers are. They see the cameras and all of that. And so they tell Preston, so Preston again explains to him they don't have any money. They're just shooting film. All they have is a camera. So by this time they're finished, so they start wrapping up and putting the equipment away and everything. And Preston said just as he was about to become a Maccabee, they started putting everything together and getting ready to leave. So he was able to escape the situation without having to get physical. But if you know Preston, he's a little guy, as most Liberians are. But yeah, he was praying that the situation would be settled before anything got out of hand. But thank God it all worked out. But like I said, I've never been to Africa without some kind of adventure.
The authorities didn't have any objection to that picture taking?
No, because they weren't near the embassy. You can't take pictures by any embassy. Okay, they have signs all up on the walls and everywhere, and particularly U.S. embassies, because the U.S. is so hated and paranoid all around the world. Yeah. These are all young people. If you go downtown Monrovia, you see just a whole lot of young people, all in their 20s and 30s. All of them are jobless, homeless, no skills, no education. Most of them are former soldiers from the war. And that's how they make their living, robbing and thieving and sometimes killing. So, yeah, and they walk in packs. You always see a gang of them together. He didn't see the sign, and he wasn't trying to take a picture of the embassy. He when we got to the hill, it was a beautiful overlooking of the city, and that's all he was trying to do, was take a picture of the city.
But the sign didn't apply to me because I was not near the embassy, or so I thought.
Yeah, but see, they have cameras on the walls of the embassy, and they saw him taking a picture. They didn't know what he was taking a picture. They just saw him taking a picture.
They had cameras on both sides of the street. The street was kind of wide, and they had cameras on both sides of the street at the top of the hill, and they had two more about midway down the hill. The guard showed them to me as we were going back up. So, but had I seen the embassy, I would have known I wasn't supposed to take it. But I didn't see the embassy. I didn't know it was there. You couldn't see it.
Yeah, it was a big white fence, about almost tall as this. Yeah. No, you didn't see the flag or the embassy till you got to the bottom of the hill and walked inside the gate. You couldn't see the embassy. We knew, you see, the embassy, and the other thing about the embassy, the U.S. Embassy moved. It used to be in one location a year ago. The last time we visited, it was in one location, but now they have moved to a new location. So we didn't know where it was. Till the guards start pointing. You see the sign? You see the sign? It doesn't say U.S. Embassy. We're looking for the embassy. So these are some of the pictures. That's the Atlantic Ocean. Liberia's right on the ocean, so we saw the ocean every single day. Well, yep. So that's the Atlantic. That's Preston Papa Jackson, the man who makes everything happen. Preston is about 38, 39. You can't tell he's sitting down? Oh, okay. If he stood up, he wouldn't be much taller than that. That's Kojo getting his drink on. That's the hotel where that's the restaurant across the street from the hotel where we stayed, where we did most of the filming. But when you see the film, you're not going to be able to tell where we were, but we were in a hotel restaurant. No. They had spent a week filming before we got there. And the scenes that they wanted during the week when we got there were all us interacting together. So, and this hotel was 2 floors, so they rented out the upper room just so we could do filming. So we were in the upper room. For a whole week, we were in the upper room. That's Pastor Ford, the pastor of POCC Monrovia. That's Annika in the background filming, if you can see that. Yeah, she was back on this trip. And Pastor Ford is very studious. He's in theology school now, trying to get his bachelor's of divinity or master of divinity, whatever it is in Liberia. So he's studying that, and very avid reader, and is really trying to learn best self-theology. I knew that was coming. He's 31. And an eligible bachelor. He's looking for a beautiful African-American woman to be his wife. He's been telling me this for the last 2 years. He's been begging me to bring him an African-American wife. So he's waiting. That's our National Secretary, Rufus Jarbo. That's, age matters. You got to be of childbearing age. So that's Rufus. He's our national secretary. He's the administrator. He's Preston's sidekick. They started the ministry together. They do everything together. Just recently, Preston was able to get Rufus a position at the LOIC, so now he's really, really doing well, and just at the top of his game. That's the second anniversary POCC T-shirts that we brought back that he's modeling for you. Yeah, he's the action. He's the get it done guy. And that's him getting his grub on. That's on the first level of the hotel restaurant where we had most of our lunches. And that's Pastor Jones from Ganta City. You can't see it. It's kind of dark. A non-photographer. Using his iPad for the first time. I'm just as bad as Kojo. I couldn't figure out, and that's some real Liberian food. And you can see anytime they eat, is 2-3 people in the plate. They don't believe in people eating alone. Communalism, that's the African way. So they don't like it when Kojo and I come and he orders food and I order food, and they don't want to each order some food. They just order one plate and they all dig in and say, you Americans spend too much money on food. Okay, and there's Rufus getting ready to take the filmmakers out on location. That's in the upper room. That evening after we finished the last day of filming, we sat down and had a powwow, had a real nice dinner, and it was wonderful. We had a good time that evening. Everybody shared some stories and had a good time. Some people got drunk. I'm not going to call no, I'm just kidding. Nobody got drunk. Okay, and then Friday, we had our all-church meeting in Monrovia. That's at another location. We were at another hotel on the beach, so we had a meeting there. All the pastors and all the leadership from the church in Monrovia were represented there. You can't see all the people on the right side, but it's about 4 people on the right, including some women. You can't see them. They're on there. They're on the right side. You can't see them in that picture. Yeah, that's in another. On Easter Sunday, we had a stole ceremony. They surprised us and bestowed these stoles on us. I already had on my Easter outfit, and then they pulled this other booba out of a bag and started walking towards me. I said, no, you're not going to put this on me. What are you doing? And they said, Cardinal, no, please let us do this. So I'm up there struggling, trying to get this thing over my head. But it was a real nice ceremony. They wanted to make us official elders of the church in Monrovia. So that's Pastor Jones and Pastor Ford. That's Preston. No, they don't wear African garb. Yeah. The sisters wear traditional African. Preston had it on today because it was that day because it was Easter. The pastor wears a suit. Both pastors wear suits. And that's after church. That's some of the church members. That's the drummer standing next to Preston. That's the worship leader, Rufus's wife, Louise, and some of the other church members in the back. Now, last year, you can't hardly see the church, but it was just a big foundation, not even the cement for the foundation, and some poles holding everything in place. And now they've finished the walls and put a cement base all around it, put a roof on top. The next step is to lay a floor. So they're working on that now. They're getting the cement together for the floor. That's Louise, Preston, and the drummer, and Pastor Jones. And that's three of the young people in the church. That's Pastor Jones' son. He's in school in Monrovia. That's Emmanuel. That's the young man that we're putting through medical school. He's in his second year, doing very well. That's Preston's adopted son, Emmanuel, and that's his other adopted son, Saki. Saki is the youth minister, and he's soon to be the associate pastor to Pastor Ford. Pastor Ford's taking him under his wing. He wants to go to theology school as well. So that's Pastor Ford and one of the elders of the church, Elder Jackson. He's been with the church since the beginning. He's the first person there every Sunday, always there to set up and help and do whatever he can. How old do you think he is? 76 years old. 76 years young. You're right. That's not very old at all. That's not that old. That's after church, they had an Easter egg hunt, so the kids are all looking for eggs. They had on their Easter regalia. And they're cleaning up after church. Pastor Ford leads the cleanup effort. Pastor Jones and Ford. When was that? Saturday night, we all went over to Rufus's place and just chilled for a little while. That's Rufus's wife, Louise. She's cooking food for about 100 people for a funeral service that next day. So she's stirring up the chicken with spices and stuff. That's Rufus, and you can't see his mother-in-law on the left over there, and his sister-in-law and her daughter on the right. And that's my godson, Mbiyu Jr. That's the little guy who they named Cardinal Mbiyu. And they actually did that against my will. And they call him Cardinal. That's what they call him. Come here, Cardinal. Come here, Cardinal. Cardinal, stop. Cardinal, sit down. Cardinal, be quiet. They call him Cardinal. They call him Reverend. They call him anything but Mbiyu. They call him I call him Mbiyu. Come here, Mbiyu. He's 2. He just turned 2 in January. But He's looking at my iPad trying to see what this amazing thing is. Yeah, that's a selfie. I couldn't get him to smile. I couldn't even get him to talk. Now, he talks up a storm. At least that's what his mama tell me and his dad say. He talk all the time. But he didn't, the whole 3 days I was with, he said not a mumbling word. He let me hold him, but he didn't say, he wasn't giving up no words. He didn't say a word. That's a young man who we adopted to put through school this year, thanks to Ife and Mona. Their family adopted a student. He's going to school to be an electrician and an auto mechanic. He just called me last week, told me he got registered, he got his classes, everything is wonderful. He's also a waiter at the hotel where we had our lunch every day. So he's working and going to school. Great, excellent waiter. And Mbiyu found him an Easter egg. And that is us leaving at the airport in Monrovia. And you can see the airport is... The airport is no bigger than from here to back there. Okay, you walk through this door and you out on the other side of the airport. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the churches and how they're doing. The church in Monrovia is doing fine. We have about 150 members, about 75 children and 75 adults, something like that. So there's a lot of emphasis on the youth, which is a good thing. They have a children's choir that sang about 3 songs on Sunday at Easter service, and then they have Sunday school, and then they have adult Bible study, and then they have worship service. And the youth minister leads all of that. And probably because it was Easter, we had a lot of kids there Easter Sunday. But we gave them all gifts from the church. We gave them crosses and calculators, pencils, and school supplies, stuff like that. Are they very politically conscious? They're about as politically conscious as black people in America. No, it depends on what the context is. They're very conscious of their own political situation. Yes, very. But in terms of the world, I don't know. I couldn't really speak on that. Well, how do you correct that? Well, you arm them with the information that they need before they go. Yeah, it's any seminary. The seminary Walamu they going to. Where is he at? Is that a black seminary? Are they teaching you black theology? Okay, so. Okay, if you know who you are, then. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you don't know Pastor Ford. Okay, Pastor Ford is totally best self theology, and he just learned about best self theology a year ago. If you heard his message, you would think he'd been preaching it since he was born. Okay, he knows what, I gave him some very simple guidelines. I said, we preach Jesus, and he was a black Messiah. We don't preach Paul. We don't preach Satan. We don't preach sin. We don't preach none of that other stuff, all them other. We preach Jesus. And as long as you stick with Jesus, you can't go wrong. Okay, and that's exactly what he does. So they're in good hands. No, but they're straight in terms of the theology of the church. That when we first started this whole process, they read Black Christian Nationalism, they read the Black Messiah, and they loved it. They studied it for a year. That's more than they studied it for a year. They didn't have anything else. That's all they could do was study that book. So they're pretty grounded. You'd be surprised. But like I said, the whole week I was with the pastors in dialogue all night. We talked theology all day and all night. Then we called them. Every time they saw me, I was engaging them. You know, giving them. It was a week, but it was like a month-long seminary going on, and we covered everything, all the important aspects of the Bible. So. You know, so yeah, I'm in teacher mode the whole time when I'm there.
They have a hunger for it.
Yeah.
And they don't have all the other distractions.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of difference. Communalism is already built into this.
Yeah. And that makes it a lot easier too. you don't have to start from scratch. In the sense of building a church, yes, it's very much like that. It's very much like that. Yeah, and that you'd be surprised how much that pays off in the process. When you don't have all the things that you think you need, it gives you a different passion about it. Okay, and Pastor Ford calls me every day. Okay, there's not a day that goes by where he doesn't call me. Now that he has a smartphone and he has access to the internet, you know, and I can really feed him with email and information on the net. My phone bill, you don't want to know. Yeah. But I do mostly texting. I don't talk on the phone.
You mentioned earlier that Mona and Ife sponsored this young man going to college. Is that something on the side, or is that something that other people knew about and just didn't?
At the Synod, I asked people if they would like to sponsor a child. I put out the call to all the regions, and I got several people in Houston who sponsored a child as well, and several people in Atlanta who did so. But that's been something that we've been doing since I've been going to Africa, since 1999. Every year I adopt at least 2 kids to put through school.
I think it would help our church community if we had some of this stuff on print. That first of all, we would know about it as members of the church, but we could also use it as a drawing tool to talk to people in the community about what we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody who might have their own church, but they would be interested in sponsoring that kind of, doing that. If we had the tool, we could draw them in.
Okay, we'll put somebody on that. So the church in Monrovia is doing okay. Our biggest issue is to find a permanent home for the church. And that's, like I said, we got some new information on this trip from brother and sister from Atlanta who gave us some good information about how we can go about procuring some land for the church. So we're going to take that advice and try to make sure we can get that done before the end of the year. My plan is to go back to Liberia in December, before the end of this year, to shore up that issue with the land and to visit the church in Ganta City, which I wasn't able to do. And they were very disappointed because we didn't come to Ganta on this trip. But we tried to explain to them as best we could that Ebola carries a lot of weight. So, but the church in Ganta City is doing very well. It is in a new location. It started out in the LOIC building in Ganta City that was donated to us by Mr. King, the national director of the LOIC. And they found out that it was another empty building in the center of the city that wasn't being used. So they made it an arrangement, a lease arrangement with the guy to use the building. And so that became the new church home, and that's where they are now. So they don't. I think you saw some of you saw a picture of the old church, and they had a picture of white Jesus on the wall, and everybody was all up in arms. Why do they have that white Jesus? Well, give them a black Jesus, and they'll put the black Jesus up on the wall. But in the new church, they have it all day. It's beautiful. I didn't go, so I couldn't take any pictures, but it's beautifully decorated, and they really made that their church home. The only problem that they're having now with the church is that the lease agreement they made, the guy who owns the property, when he came to Pastor Jones to renegotiate the contract in January, he said he was going to double the rent. So Pastor Jones said, well, why do you want to do this? He said, because when you moved in, you only had 100 members, and now you have 250. So you must be doing well. So he wanted to double the rent. And but Pastor Jones, kind of kept them at bay. He said, well, our bishop is coming next month, and because I was supposed to be going in February, so we'll see if we can work something out. But we really can't afford it. He said, we've grown in size. We went from 100 to 250, but we have 150 youth and 100 adults. So, we don't have a lot of income. But anyway, that's one of the main issues, again, is being able to maintain the church building. So we were able to work out some arrangements, and I gave them the rent money for the year. And I told them that we wouldn't sign any contract that was negotiating for more than a 10% increase. That's, we can give them that, but that's it. So he hasn't contacted me yet about, having the meeting. He's supposed to meet with the guy this week and let me know if that was good or not. But the church is growing. They have a new leadership group than what we had last year. They have an associate pastor who we're paying for to go to Bible school. Well, actually, two of them that we're paying for to go to Bible school. And they have a big youth program, and they do a lot of outreach in the community. They're always doing outreach in the community. Their biggest problem is transportation. We're trying to help them resolve that. We gave the pastor transportation money for the whole year, so he's straight on that. And we're trying to look at getting a used vehicle for the church so they'll have some way to get around. Yeah. So that's what we're looking at now. But both of the churches are doing well. They don't really have any major issues other than, like I said, the land problem. It's the Liberia Opportunities Industrialization Center. It's a vocational training program that's nationwide. Well, actually, it's worldwide. It's not just in Liberia. Yep. Yep, the same one that he founded. Ganta City. Yeah, that's where we didn't go. It's in Liberia. It's all the way at the border of Liberia. Monrovia is on one border, and Ganta City is on the opposite border of the country. So, no, it's about 5-hour, 6-hour drive to get there. And broken down vehicle. But the good thing about it now is that you can see the infrastructure being rebuilt. They're building new roads. They've almost got a smooth freeway now going outside the city. So you can see things are on the up and up. So our biggest challenge, though, is to get the school, because that's really going to be a turning point for the church. It'll give them a steady income. It'll give them a steady flow of members and children coming into the church. So we're really trying to push that, and it'll address one of their biggest social needs, which is education. So that's it. Our vision for the next year is to shore up both churches with the support that they need. And one of the issues that we discussed in our church meeting was the best way to go about doing that. So we came to the decision that each church would be sponsored by another church. So Shrine 1, the Mother Shrine, we have taken on the responsibility of the church in Monrovia, which we were already doing anyway. And Shrine 9 in Atlanta is going to take the church in Ganta City as their sister church. So the only thing that I still haven't figured out is the communications process. And until I get a revelation about that, I don't really know how that's going to work. But what I'm saying is that I don't want, all the unilateral kind of communication efforts that can get things really, So I'm trying to figure that one out. But other than that, I think that'll be a good approach, to supporting the churches. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? When you got too many people calling them and emailing them and telling them, they get all these mixed messages and, well, somebody told me this and I heard that, and people making statements and promises that we can't keep. And, a central information officer. Yes, we need that. Yeah, something like that. But it's not really a big issue. It really isn't, because if you call any of them and try to have a conversation, you're gonna have a very hard time. Am I right, Coda? Because they're speaking English, but they're speaking it through a Bassa dialect or a Pele dialect or some other dialect that you've never heard of. So you're going to have a hard time. Unless it's written communication, you really will have a hard time trying to talk to them.
You got to read it 4 or 5 times to understand it too.
So, the communications thing, we still have to work that out. Because I would like to open up the lines of communication, but it has to be in a way that is constructive on both sides. Because they too have a tendency to, and this has been my experience since 1999. Once they get your information, they start bombarding you with wishes and wants and needs and problems and issues and emergencies. And the week before I was going, I got hit up 1,000 times. Cardinal, Reverend Imani, did you talk to her? She was supposed to send me something. Sister Samia, have you talked to her? She was supposed to send me something. Yeah, they wanted me to bring it. I said, no, I'm not bringing anything. But that's what happens inevitably. So that's what I'm trying to keep. What was the arrangement? Absolutely not. We just paid for the shirts that we paid for. Because we only had a little time, like I said, we filmed up till Friday. We got the T-shirts made on Saturday right before we left, so they were only able to make a dozen. Kojo bought 2. I bought 2. It was 8 left. Okay, so that's it. We sold the 8 we had, and that's it. It wasn't a fundraiser. Right. we got to get the land first before they have everything else that they need to run a school. They have the curriculum. They have all the all of the infrastructure, all of that. Yeah, they have all of that worked out. We just need some land.
I guess part of that question too about the teachers, if that were to be a fundraiser, that couldn't be.
Couldn't be. Problem number one, how are we going to get the shirts here? Can we make them here? It's probably possible, but it wouldn't be economical. I'm not understanding why we want to make them anyway. It was for an anniversary, which is over. I mean, it was just a souvenir for the anniversary celebration. You know what I'm saying? It's dated. I mean, yeah, they are. But next year, there'll be a new souvenir dated, so... Any other questions?
If we're through this segment, I'd like to make a mention of a small tribute that we're paying to Cardinal Massad, or General Massad, at the shrine of the Sun. I might make a small mention of that.
Go ahead. Make a small mention of it.
Okay. I was thinking, in all these years, the shrine has had some of everybody at the shrine. Y'all have to email that. And, they had people like now.
Oh, I sent it to her.